Now, pens have been around since 2000 BC. Yep, that much. However, the oldest piece of writing on papyrus dates back to again 2000 BC, and it was by the ancient Egyptians. The pens which we use today are far different from what we used back then. Today we have ink pens, in which one of the most innovative ones are the ballpoint pens. They are cheap, very easy to use, and have become the most used pens today. So here's how we got from this to this. As I mentioned, it all began in ancient Egypt. They used the reed pen, which were fashioned from hollow tubular stems of marsh grasses, especially bamboo plant. One end was cut into the shape of a pen nib or a point. Then the reed stem was filled with a writing fluid that would flow down to the nib when it would be squeezed. Now, a lot of Egyptian writings are the engravings on the wall. It could just be done with some sharp tools and without needing a pen. But Egyptians also had the papyrus paper, and in fact the English word paper comes from the word papyrus. But Egyptians found many uses of the plant other than the writing surfaces for the documents and text. Papyrus was used as a food source, to make ropes, for sandals, for boxes and baskets, and quite a lot of few things. So engraving wasn't the only options Egyptians had. So the writings which we have found from the Egyptians on the papyrus paper is mostly from these reed pens. Then came the quill pens in about 600 AD. Now, which are the ones you see in the movie Harry Potter? Now, Europeans used the bird feathers to produce this too. The bird feathers, which were the best for this purpose, were taken from the living swans, turkeys, and geese. So these feathers were then dried with a gentle heat to remove any oils that may interfere with the ink. Next, the end of the feather must be shaped and sharpened with a knife. Now this was then dipped into an inkwell to fill the hollow shaft of the feather that acts as a reservoir. This lasted till 1822 when the steel point pens were introduced. They were still ink pens and functioned in the same way as the quill pens, needing to be dipped into the ink, but they were sturdier and much less expensive. A little later we got famous fountain pens. It was the first Petrache Pionero, a Romanian inventor, who received a patent for the invention of the very first fountain pen with an ink barrel in 1827. However, the design was never perfected and had major flaws. It was in 1884 that the Louis Edson Waterman developed and gained a patent for a 3-channel ink fountain pen. Now, the design ensured a smooth flow of ink during writing and revolutionized the pen into the portable tool. Now, the ballpoint pens were introduced or discovered to eliminate the irritation related to the fountain pens. Filling of the barrel of the fountain pen with ink was definitely a hassle, and a lot of people had to wait for the ink to dry on the paper after writing. There were a few individuals related to the ballpoint pen invention, most notably the Hungarian journalist Laszlo Biro, who is credited with inventing it. But as most of the stories of individual geniuses, this take obscures a much longer history of iterative engineering and marketing success. In fact, Biro wasn't the first to develop the idea. The ballpoint pen was originally patented in 1888 by the American leather tanner named John Loud. But his idea never went any further. The design never actually produced a satisfactory flow of ink for the writer, and it was until a couple of decades later in 1930s that another attempt at the ballpoint is made by Laszlo Biro, who was living in Argentina during the World War II, and these early pens failed not in the mechanical design but in their choice of ink. The ink used in the fountain pen, the ballpoint's predecessor, is thinner to facilitate the better flow through the nib. But with that thinner ink inside the ballpoint pen, you end up with leaky mess. Ink is where Laszlo Biro, working with the chemist brother Georgi, made the crucial changes. They experimented with thicker, quick-drying inks, starting with the ink used in the newsprint presses. Eventually, they refined both the inks and the ball tip design to create a pen that didn't leak badly. He patented the design in Argentina in 1943 and began production. Later that year, when the British Air Force, in search of a pen that would work at high altitudes, purchased 30,000 of them. Soon the patent was filed and sold to various companies in Europe and North America, and the ballpoint pen began to spread all across the world. The businessmen made significant fortunes by purchasing the rights to the manufacture the ballpoint pen in their country, and they brought the prices down. Now, when it first hit the market in 1946, the ballpoint was sold for around $10, roughly equivalent to $100 of today. Now, when the big crystal hit the American markets in 1959, the price was down to 19 cents a pen, which is still the same. Here's what happens inside a ballpoint pen. Well, there's a ball, which might sound obvious and weird. Now, the ball is located between the ink reservoir and the paper by a socket, and while it is tight, it has enough room to roll around as you write. So as the pen moves across the paper, the ball turns and the gravity forces the ink down the reservoir onto the ball, where it is transferred onto the paper. It is the rolling mechanism that allows the ink to flow from the top of the ball and roll onto the paper while you're writing with the pen. Now, while at the same time sealing the ink from the air so that it does not dry the reservoir. So it's basically all related to the ball, which is why it's called a ballpoint pen. So that's it guys for this one. I hope you guys liked the video. Smash like, hit subscribe, and now you know how a pen works. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.